committed to going Reach is really committed to going deeper in relationship with people where we're really having a very communicative, relational meeting with folks about how did you get to where you are and what has gone well in your life and what are the barriers and what can we do to provide you with the tools you need to become more independent and self-sufficient. And I will tell you, it is complex and it is difficult. And every approach and engagement that we meet with people are always a little different. This is anything but a cookie cutter model. Everyone has come a very unique path into homelessness or houselessness, and their exit is going to be very unique. So we like to really do a lot of one-on-one work. We currently have contracts with the City of Bend, and we also have a contract with Neighbor Impact. So we are called by all the different agencies to go out. Even Bend PD, Redmond PD, Sheriff's Department will call. Maybe they've got someone camping somewhere and they have taken care of any of the law enforcement issues that might be there, and they will ask us then to go out and communicate with those folks, make sure we're messaging on safe places they can be, and to see what folks are in need of. So we are excited to be meeting people where they are, and that's literally where they are. It is also a challenging time because we have a lot of communities that are bumping up against each other. And I think one of the things that Reach is really feeling strong about is that we need to honor our houseless community members, but we also have to make sure that we are honoring our other vulnerable populations. We've got a lot of children in the area, we've got older adults, other people that have special needs, and then also our housed community members, so that anything that is happening is going to have an impact on them. We really want to look at that as an agency. We're really small. I am out on the street often and then serving as the executive director. We have a full-time case manager outreach support person that we have. And then other than that, we really run on volunteers. Our volunteers do not go on the street and they don't go out to the camps, but we utilize volunteers to help with our data entry, with picking up donations and helping us in along those lines. I think sending folks out to the street or the camps really takes a lot of training and experience, and de-escalation training, because we're meeting people that might be in various states in terms of where they are. We have a large population of our houseless that are actually working right now, but because of our housing and economy cannot get housing. So we're also addressing that when we're out by doing something that's called the VI SPDAT. It's basically a vulnerability index that assesses somebody's vulnerability. And from that, we can go ahead and get them signed up for housing vouchers if that's appropriate. The unfortunate thing is we all know that low income or affordable housing is slim to none. It is increasing. So we are trying to address those needs as well. Reach is also running a kind of a unique program, two other unique programs. One is called Safe Car Parking. So as we drive around the streets, we noticed so many vehicles are parked in residential communities and near schools and areas where they can't access services. We can't find folks when we go out to look for them. So we modeled the program after many states that have a safe car parking program. It's very small, but we have right now 5 guests staying at Nativity Lutheran Church. They've been there since November. It is not, I guess the best way to explain it, I think we're up against people thinking that it's going to be like a Hunnell Road situation. So it is not. In order to stay with us there, you must do an intake. You need to sign guidelines that you understand that there's no use of drugs or alcohol on the premises, no open fires, no guests. We actually ask people not to have guests there. It is a place that you can sleep in your vehicle. You can be safe overnight. You can work with a case manager 3 times a week, and that you're not going to have to be moving along. We have worked with the Ben PD to make sure that Ben PD will allow people, if they don't have a license, registration, or tags, they are allowed. It's kind of a safe zone. But one of our case management goals is to work with someone, because what we see a lot in the houseless community is people get vehicles very cheap, and then they don't have a license or they don't have insurance or tags. They get pulled over, the vehicle gets towed, they can't afford it. Now they go buy another vehicle, and meanwhile, we have all these cars that are going into our landfill. So by helping people to be able to get their license and registration and stay current with that, also help with the budgeting piece, is really essential for folks. And we have an aging population, many of whom are not comfortable with a computer. And it's really difficult to navigate the systems if you don't have, computer literacy. So we often will help with filling out housing applications, employment applications, and various different documents. So if someone doesn't have an ID or birth certificate, so we really sit down and kind of co-create with each person a plan of, what do you have in place? What is it that you'd like to achieve? And what's stopping you from getting there? It was exciting last week. A gentleman came to us and hasn't been working for several years. It's been one thing after another. But right now, the barriers were he needed an ID and he needed glasses. So that was probably about, I'd say, 10 days ago. We were able to help him with that in 2 days, to get his eyeglasses repaired, his eye exam, and to get a valid ID. And he messaged me today that he has applied for about 6 different jobs, and he's waiting to get an offer from one of them. So it's really exciting to see those changes, and those kind of slight shifts. And it doesn't always happen that way. Sometimes it's partnering with someone and really just offering them a relationship that's very non-judgmental, to kind of make very small shifts in their life. We celebrate successes, even the small ones. We've got a gentleman that's been drinking 2 less beers a day, and we're pretty excited. I mean, that in itself is a huge success. And so it is definitely a harm reduction model. But we're seeing, out of the relationship, we see a lot of, you get to share a point in time when it can be very vulnerable for someone. So it's really an honor to be able to walk alongside someone during these challenging times. The safe car parking program, I'm really excited to tell you, is going to expand to Redmond next week. Redmond City Council approved it, and we will be same model at a different location there. Again, I'm really feeling strong. I get asked a lot, why not have 15, 20, 30, 40 people? I really feel that we're trying to build a small community of people that will build kind of their own neighborhood, so to speak, while they're here and waiting to go to those next steps. And so we believe in this small, very intimate group. We ended up with 5 individuals moving into the safe car parking, and now they really have built a community and they watch out for each other. 2 of the folks just got housing, and it was so wonderful to see the other community members of this safe car parking celebrate that for them, because that's got to be hard when you're sleeping in your vehicle and it's freezing. The population we have at Nativity Lutheran in our safe car parking are ranging from 60 to about 78 years old. It's really calm, it's clean. We have a trash receptacle, we have a porta potty, hand washing station. And like I said, I think the key to the success of this program is that ongoing case management. So Redmond will be set up similar, and we're excited to get that program started. The other program that we started that is very small scale right now is our cleanup program. Bottle Drop gave us a sponsorship of some money, and we came up with an idea to ask 6 of our houseless community members if they were interested in working 2 hours a week doing cleanup around the Central District. So they have grabbers, trash bags, gloves, they wear a vest, they clean up the Central District trash. And once they're done, we meet with them, case management meets with them, talks about how it went. We get to have an opportunity to see that it is being cleaned up. And in exchange, they can earn a gift card. For every hour they work, we give a $15 gift card. And One is we're doing some cleanup in that area, which is helpful. I think the thing that I'm touched by is that people's self-esteem has really grown from this. And out of the 6 people we started with, we have 3 that have gone on to get jobs because two things happened. One, they realized I actually can get where I need to be when I'm supposed to be there, and their confidence built up. But also, I think they like the idea of being able to earn a gift card to be able to go get what they need, and that felt really good to have that sense of purpose. So we every time we have someone that moves on to a job, we will add someone else to that little workforce. My hope is that we can build this program, so that's kind of exciting to see what's happening with that. On a monthly basis, we are having what we see 400 engagements a month. That means we are face to face connecting with someone, with a person, 400 people. Now, about 100 of those a month are unduplicated, and the rest we see several times a month. And that to me is a positive because that tells me we've built a relationship that is strong and that people feel comfortable to come to us. Um, the partnership with Deschutes County Behavioral Health Stabilization Center and St. Charles Hospital has been amazing. We are contacted frequently to help assist with patients or clients that are exiting from that program or need additional help, and can deliver, essential items to those folks as they're, I'm going to just shut my door real quick, essential items to them as they are making transitions out of different programs. We can also help support someone if they're wanting to get into any kind of recovery support, doctor's appointments. Today we had a gentleman that called that was having chest pains and the hospital wanted him to come in so we can access a cab. We are very firm in our belief that the goal is to empower folks, and that our goal is not just to be handing things out hand over fist. What we see is that there ends up being piles of unused clothing and food sitting along the streets because people very good hearted are dropping off numerous things. So we're really working on that. We're also small enough that we can work with someone. We had a gentleman that needs his car insurance paid. He's living in his vehicle. And so we have an agreement that we wanted him to be able to come up with half of it, and we would match that and pay the remainder of his car insurance. And we brainstormed about a couple ideas, and you know what? Within a week, he gathered cans, he did a day's work at day labor, and he was able to come up with that money. And he has such a sense of pride that it wasn't a handout. It was something that he was part of doing. And so those are the stories that are wonderful. We also know that in our community right now, as we drive around, we're seeing lots of camps popping up all over town, on ODOT land, on the roads and the streets. And I think this is a message to our community that we need to build more infrastructure. Bend has grown quickly, and so we need to get more shelters in town, more affordable housing, and perhaps some areas that we can consider like a safe zone for outdoor shelter. And so these are all things that the task forces are working on through the city and the county. It's not an easy lift. It is very, very heavy lift. And I think it's just always trying to remind ourselves that these are humans beings, and they deserve the dignity and the worth and the respect. I am often asked, well, why don't people just pull themselves up by their bootstraps? It's one thing if you have boots, but if you don't have boots, let alone shoes on your feet, that's a big ask. And I think the problem is much more complex when we have mental illness and addiction. So we are really trying to partner with those agencies that are the experts. And that's, I think, what I am so grateful for Reach for, is that we know that we are not in this alone. We know that we alone cannot solve this problem, and we are not the experts in everything. So we pride ourselves on building really tight relationships with the other entities and social service agencies, thinking out of the box solutions, and making sure that we are at all times remembering that it is about dignity and worth and communication, transparency. And so we really, we live by those tenets as an agency. We will be expanding our staff. Hopefully in January, we'll be adding one more staff member as we are doing more of the partnering out, and the camps are growing and locations are expanding. And I think we can all agree that we've got to find some better solutions than moving groups from one location to another location. So my hope is that we will be able to identify some locations. I think that's really important. One thing I didn't mention about safe car parking, and some people don't agree with this. Some people feel like it should be everyone and anyone welcome. We do a background check for anyone that has a sexual offense. And the reason I feel strongly about this is that both of our locations have either Head Start or preschool programs. And so even though we know that anyone in a house can have a sexual offense as well, we want to make sure that we're keeping our families and our kiddos and our guests safe at all times. You know, I often give the analogy because we talk about, well, I'll tell you, I got a call up from a woman who is very concerned about a man and woman who were having a fight on a street corner. And I was asking her if it was physical. Did she need to call 911? She said, no, they were just arguing. So I did go over there, and I happened to know the people and talk to them. And then I went back to talk to her, and she said it was very disturbing and upsetting to see two people fighting and arguing. And the one thing is I actually validated how she felt. And yes, that is really scary. But one thing I imagine is if we took our neighborhood or Boyd Acres and you lifted the roofs and the walls away from everyone's home, everything inside is going to look different. We are going to have the most functional, wonderful families. We're going to have people that have sexual offenses, people that are addicted to drugs, people that might be in abusive situations. The challenge when you're houseless is that you don't have that privacy. You don't have that. There is no wall. So you get in an argument or anything and everything you do is exposed for all to see. So I say that because I think it reminds us to have that patience and that grace. I also want to say that one of the things that we're really working on is with people is, yes, you are out here. Yes, it is difficult, but you please need to use our trash bags, because I think the litter and trash is really a huge component of what is bothering a lot of people. And I do understand that. I go out to China Hat and our beautiful national forest that has piles of trash. So one thing we are doing, we're delivering trash bags. We're making sure people have gloves. We're arranging for more trash pickups. And I'm very kind and very nice, but I will also call people on things. So I have a gentleman at one of the camps who he always tells me he can't get his trash out of there. So he invited me to his tent one day, and I am not kidding. I walked into his tent. He had a headboard, a mattress, a TV, a generator. And I said to him, I said, if you can get all of these things in, you absolutely can get your trash out. So ever since then, he's been doing a much better job of being mindful. I asked that question to some of our houseless community. Why not pick up the trash? You know that it's destroying the forest. And I got a really good response is, we don't know where our meal is going to come from. We don't know where we're going to sleep. I don't even know where I'm going to go to the bathroom today, and if I'm going to be freezing tonight. So they say I live in this constant state of crisis, and other things fall to the ground, or literally fall to the ground, but other things are not quite as important when you are dealing in a constant state of crisis. So I'm not defending people, but I do think it's where we can continue to work and kind of wrap our arms around people in helping them to be able to achieve. And it feels good when your space is cleaned as well. I'm trying to think if I'm sure there's things I have forgotten. I would love to see if at this point, if people do have questions, I am happy to answer those questions. If
We
not,
have,
I'll keep talking.
we have a question in the chat box. Joette wanted to know, what are your sources of funding?
Thank you. Great question. So we receive some support from community members through anonymous donations or donations. We also receive some of the churches and local businesses also support us. And then we receive grants through United Way, the City of Bend, OHA, Oregon Housing Authority, the council, the Health Council. So there are numerous other agencies. Most of our funding is dependent on grant writing. So we do have one of our board members that writes our grants for us, and her and I collaborate on that.
The new proposals to have a managed camps, and which I think is a great idea, but I'm just wondering, has there been any change in that? Has there been any progress?
So I actually met with the city today that's being discussed. So the areas that have been brought up right now, which most of you probably know, are next to First Presbyterian Church on 9th Street. There is a piece of land that the city owns. I can speak to that they're looking at going forward with that. I think there are agencies, and Reach is one of them. I'm going to be really transparent. I love the idea. I personally, as an agency, we don't think that is the best location. You are situated right across from a high school. I apologize, I can't think of the other school, but there's another elementary school right there.
Bear Creek.
The high school kids use that parking lot during the day. And so there's a lot of activity. So for Reach, that is one concern. The other concern is an operator hasn't been identified yet. And so I think it really depends on that operator. My concern is if we were to endorse that and the operator comes in and says, we're not going to do any background checks, no screening at all, that is a challenge. I don't know that that's the right place for that model. I do think that safe car parking with 2 to 4 vehicles could be a great option there. They are looking at property on the south end of town as well, but that is a piece of property that would need to be purchased. And I think they're still exploring that possibility, down near Les Schwab. I came from Washington State, where I worked with our unhoused population for about 11 years. And then I've been here 7 years or 6 years. There, what we did, we found a great option. It was a great piece of land that actually had a warehouse on it. And we were able to turn that into a low barrier shelter kind of camping area. And what we did was, because it was kind of far out, we just worked the bus system, and we worked with the city to have the buses run 2 to 4 times a day in and out of that location so people could still access services. And this population is unique here. Our houseless population is very split here in this region. Many are looking for apartments, housing, that traditional model. But I have to tell you, many are looking for a different model. They want to be outside. They want to have a piece of land or a trailer or a motor home, and not have all the responsibilities of having a brick and mortar house and apartment. So just like you and I, when we come to the area, we are looking for the home that fits our needs. So some of us are in apartments, some rent, some own, some condos, some houses. And I think it's no different for our houseless community. They're all looking for something a little bit different. So I'd love to be able to offer more options for folks. So we are moving forward, I know, on this model, but I think still where it would be is still to be determined.
When you talk about the manager, are you talking about the person who stays there the whole time?
It's kind of an umbrella agency that would be the operator. They would be the ones that would have the oversight. Who do you call 24/7? So like for safe car parking, that's me. 24/7 if someone has an emergency. Who's going to go out there if there's something going on? So we do need oversight at this. And also like coordinating if there's volunteers or social service agencies that are going to come in and offer services. So, and then the reality, and no one really wants to say this, but I'll say it's the elephant in the room. It's also the person who has the insurance. And if there is a problem, the responsibility responsibility will stop with that operator, and that's the reality. We have insurance that covers us for our safe car parking and us as an agency, and then the churches also provide, or the entity that's giving us safe parking spots provides insurance oversight as well. So I do think there are some operators that are looking at proposing for that, and I don't know who that would be at this point.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry, I don't have my glasses on. So there was a question about Juniper Ridge. I can't read it. So maybe
Do you
I
ha-
can
do you-
read it. Do you think that Juniper Ridge is a suitable location for a large RV park or managed camp? And do
I
you
think
sense
there are
that the city
portions.
council is circling back to it? The original location was right nearby Lava Ridge Elementary and Skyview Middle School.
Yeah, I know. You know, I did a walk through. We did kind of a walk of the grounds of Juniper Ridge. Juniper Ridge is so big. So when I go visit Juniper Ridge, folks that live there call it Dirt World. So when I go out to Dirt World, I enter off of Highway 97, kind of as you're going to Redmond. It's kind of where the shoe tree is, not too far from Space Age. So that's kind of the entrance that I look at. I think if we looked at Juniper Ridge, there may be a portion of it that could possibly be something, but I think again, we've got to take in consideration, you know, where our schools are. And, you know, and the other thing that we have to look at is, you know, what's safe and respectful for all parties, you know, our housed and our houseless. So I think there is some more identifying of which part of Juniper Ridge. But we used to go out all the time down near Les Schwab. And
That
that's
part
closed
of
now.
Juniper Ridge that you're referring to, Stacy, is actually, I think, the part of Juniper Ridge that's out in the county. The city
Yes.
actually owns land that's out in the county.
They
So
do.
that bit of political intrigue complicates the situation. And it also involves a railroad crossing that the city would like to close because there was an RV that got stuck on it,
Yes.
and the trains couldn't run. And BNSF has been quite adamant that they need to remedy that. So there's some other complications there. And the place they were originally, they were looking at for a while was actually not next door to the schools. It was going to be east of Les Schwab somewhere. But since the city is trying to rent lots in or sell lots in the Juniper Ridge area, it could get in the way of that process of selling those lots off to people who want to do business out there in Juniper Ridge.
Absolutely. We walked some land that's out past, gosh, we walked about 3/4 of a mile, kind of behind Cetera or off to the
Yeah.
side of Cetera. Yeah. And so I think it's, you know, what is the operation gonna look like? Who is the operator? What will the guidelines be? And I think it's community members need to know that information before they can kind of weigh in. And so the city is going to have to provide that information. Hunnell Road gets into a problem too, because if I understand correctly, one side of Hunnell is county and one side is city. So we'll be working with the folks on Hunnell Road right now because winter's coming and all of their belongings are encroaching in the middle of the street. Not quite the middle, but we'll be having people kind of move things over so they're within 8 feet and snow removal can get in there because that's a really unsafe situation. Plus it sits like a bowl. So when it rains even a little, everything gets flooded. So, and this is why, you know, we have to look at what areas or properties. I keep bringing up, and I'm sure everyone else does, that KOA campground, you know, which is right there. But
Huh?
you know, that's the piece, like, I'm like, isn't that a great location? So I don't know. And it's a very challenging situation. And, you know, I think we all know that houselessness is not going to be solved or going away anytime soon. One thing I do like to share with people, because I do think many people think that by adding services and offering services here, we are bringing in more people to our community. The reality is that roughly 85% of our houseless community have ties to this region. They've either lived here, worked here, gone to school here, have family. And so that's a fairly high percentage, and many have been priced out of the market. Some have been generationally houseless. So we don't have a huge number of folks that I would say are coming in and coming, just coming here because, oh, Bend has great services. So that was the information that we got from the point in time count this last year. We are seeing an increase in our younger populations that are out there, and I'm seeing an increase of families with young children. I've gotten several calls from the hospital recently about moms being discharged with kiddos into tents or cars. And so making sure that we can provide what services we can. The goal is, if possible and safe, to keep families intact, so we can also offer those services. I think REACH is often, we're kind of considered this safe entity because we're not city, we're not county, we're not DHS. So we can kind of be a nice bridge to some of those other agencies.
So one of the other questions in the chat box that I'll read off here is, do you have places identified for folks to go who don't have cars, safe parking spots basically, but a place to set up a tent? Like ODOT has now cleared out Colorado Avenue and they're working on Revere again. And those people mostly live in tents. They don't park cars in those areas. And
yeah, we have, there's probably about I don't even know. There could be 70 to 80 people that are going to be impacted by those two camps. I know ODOT was out on Colorado today. What we chose to do was we were meeting people at a location down the street to assist them. And here's the worst part. The worst part, and the part of this job that I don't like, is looking someone in the eye when they say, where do I go? And I have to say, I don't know. Because the options are China Hat, Juniper Ridge, Hunnell Road, none of which are technically legal to do, and they're not a good answer. And that's why social service agencies are pushing for more options. The shelter, I just got off the phone with John Lodice, and he's from Shepherd's House and runs the low barrier shelter. I like calling it all are welcome shelter. I don't like the word low barrier, but it's basically a shelter that all are welcome. If you are under the influence of drugs and alcohol, you are welcome in. You can't use on the premises, and they're next to Bi-Mart, but they're full. Bethlehem Inn has a wonderful, amazing program that is a higher barrier program. So we absolutely refer to them when appropriate, but I'm not going to send someone that I know is addicted to heroin and still using every day to Bethlehem Inn, because now I've set them up for failure and the person up for failure. So the answer to that is no, we don't have spaces at this point, and that's what we are really lacking is, identified safe zones where someone can go and camp and not be moved off, but also have to kind of follow some guidelines. And that's really what we need to, to avoid this problem. I know that I talked to a lot of our first responders, and I think sometimes we don't always give them a lot of credit. Their job is challenging, but so many police officers and first responders, fire departments say, they go home too with that terrible feeling of looking someone in the eye and saying, okay, your choice is jail or the hospital. Now we've got the stabilization center, which is really another nice opportunity for someone who's in a mental health crisis to at least get 23 hours of respite and some connection.
So I have a question for you. I have several complaints that have come to BANA about the jail, the Deschutes County jail, if I may call it that, that lets people out, they say, at all hours of the day or night. And then folks, the people who have contacted me put this claim forth. I have not verified it, but the folks who have let out of jail wander around the neighborhood over on Brittle Lane and in that area, and get into people's trash and don't have anywhere to go. Do you ever work with those folks? If the jail just lets people out at 2 a.m. on a 20 below night, or
I want to tell you that is absolutely not true. However, I do work with those folks, and this is something that I have a conversation scheduled. I don't understand why, but they normally release at 5 in the morning, because I can tell you, I have picked up, I can't even tell you how many people from jail at 5 a.m. that have been released. And then normally most people are supposed to check in with their parole officers at 8 or 9. That just gives us 3 or 4 hours with no buses, nothing open, nowhere to go.
Right.
So I have put a question in about, I'm just one person, but I really do think that would eliminate a lot of challenges. I'm also asking the question of making sure that the buses are running free right now, but if not, can you get someone a bus ticket? And I also wish they would release people with their medication, because they don't do that. The prisons will give you, I think, 14 days of meds. But that's a really hard thing for folks. And so especially someone that is on any kind of psychiatric medications, if they're released from jail and they can't get their meds for 3 or 4 days, that is 3 or 4 days that we have the chance of self-medicating with the illegal substances. So I will say this, I don't know about the 2 or 3. I do see the normal time tends to be right around that. I think it's like 5 to 6 a.m. And I wish they would change that to when the buses were open. The only nice thing right now is I got a call last week from someone released. What I did was I had them go over to the stabilization center, which is just a block away, so that they could go sit, relax, get kind of supported services around them. So we will always refer over there, at least to get connected. So it is I think that's a valid concern. And I think it's something that we definitely need to bring back up and see if there's anything that the jail can do about that. I think part of the problem has been, I'm not defending it, but COVID, their numbers, trying to keep numbers lower. I know that this Deschutes County is really working on a diversion program. So like low level offenders, instead of, being in jail, will be able to work a work program with a lot of supports. And so that's really important. But I think it's a valid concern, and I will continue to voice that opinion.
Okay, well, that's good to know. I can pass some of that information on.
Yeah,
Yes,
anyone is always welcome to call me. Even if someone has a really uncomfortable question or something that I get that a lot. Someone sent me a letter last week it was pretty hurtful, not to me, but it was like, stop feeding the rats and the raccoons. Don't you know the populations grow? And I mean, that was like sticking a knife in my heart, because I've kind of, these are people I know and I care for, and they care about other people. But at the same time, I want to be able to hold a space for people to have those kind of hard, uncomfortable conversations. And I won't be reactive, and I'm going to listen, and I will share input. I invited the person to contact me and to talk more, but they didn't. But that is always out there. I do some programs with our school age children, and I always ask the kids to kind of tell me, shout out words that you think about when you see someone that's sitting on a street corner. And don't be polite, because I want the opportunity for them to feel like it's safe to say what their generalizations are: lazy, sad, drunk. And then we can kind of start to introduce them to folks that are houseless, and their little mouths just kind of fall like, this is just a person. This looks like my mom or dad, or this, so it breaks down some of those stereotypes too.
Stacy, I'd like to ask something. When the various organizations meet, particularly if you meet with the city, county, and all the others, do they ever have any real estate or developers or other people meet with you? Because when they have to build some of these places, they have to set aside sometimes a certain amount of housing, however it is, for a certain income level. But I can see right now, if one of your people gets out of their car, manages to get into some type of place like Bethlehem Inn or some other place, there's no other anywhere beyond. So I can see that being very frustrating. You're going to say, well, I finally got somebody who is not living on the street, got them out of their car. I may have gotten them into a managed place where it's limited. They get a job. Guess what? they can't afford anything. What do we do?
So one of the things, and you cut out a little bit in the middle, so I'm not sure if I'm going to miss something, but one of the things that we are doing, I'll use the word triage for lack of a better word. So if someone comes to me and they've been living in their vehicle and they're getting $794 a month, because that is what the SSI is, we know they're not going to be able to sustain housing. So I'm going to make sure that we get them signed up through our coordinated entry program to apply for a voucher. The housing vouchers, there are emergency housing vouchers available, which pays, usually the person will pay 30% of their gross income, and the voucher will cover the rest. That is one thing, but the voucher is also only as good as the paper it's written on if there's no housing to put them in, which is kind of what the challenge is right now. There's also another group, someone who may have hit very difficult times but has gotten a job, and I think that we think the person thinks they're going to be successful in a year. We can also sign them up for rapid rehousing, which pays their rent for 1 year, gives them case management, and then in 1 year, their goal is to be independent and being able to sustain that and be successful. I think that we need to couple financial literacy and budgeting with folks, because I think we have the belief that once we hand someone a key, it's wonderful because they're not homeless anymore, but there is a whole myriad of skills and tasks that they need to learn and to have someone help them with that may have been part of the problem of them getting into this situation, right? Whether it's budgeting, whether it's not being able to save, whether it's having a problem with the neighbor and not being able to self-regulate, so you start yelling. So I'm a big proponent of like these rent ready classes that talk about those things and that can navigate that. And that's where I think the folks that are most successful have ongoing case management. I've got someone that lost their housing because something happened and he just lost it and he escalated. So now every time he's frustrated, we have a deal that he's going to, instead of yelling, he calls me, I let him vent. I then say, okay, so let's talk about what's the next step for how are you going to approach, because I want you to have a voice. I don't want to silence you, but I want to work with you to have a voice in an appropriate way. So I'm sorry if I didn't answer that because you cut out in the middle a little bit. Oh, Tom might be frozen.
Yeah, he might be. You know, I put in my image with the Aurora Borealis because we're having a lot of sunspot activity right now, and it's been affecting Zoom and Wi-Fi and some other things. So anyway,
That explains it.
Now Tom's not frozen. I saw him.
Okay.
I had a question about the mental health aspect. I know the crisis center is there for people in like emergency crisis, and they can kind of wait there, I think maybe for 24 hours or something like that. Is there anyone proposing or talking about any kind of longer term mental health facilities that aren't just like a rehab or drug addiction?
No, that's a great question. So also to go back, we have stabilization. We also have something through the police department called the crisis response team that is trained to handle mental health crises. There is also through Deschutes County Behavioral Health, there is a walk-in crisis appointments that you can do. That would be more appropriate, I would say, for someone that can manage outpatient. Also, if you need, there is Sageview. The challenge with Sageview is the beds are fairly limited. And in order to access Sageview, you need to go through St. Charles ED. So you've got to go through the emergency department. Someone would then do an assessment with you. And then based on, this is where it gets really dicey, based on whether you have suicidal or homicidal ideations and a plan to act on either of those, they will help you get into Sageview. The problem is we have a lot of people that fall through that gap. Like, yes, I'm thinking of killing myself, but I really haven't figured out a plan. They may not qualify for Sageview. And that is a gap that we identified this week, that we need more, both beds for mental illness, inpatient, where someone can stay longer than 24 hours or a 3-day hold. We also don't have a dual diagnosis facility for those people that have both substance use disorders and mental illness. And often those come hand in hand, and it's kind of a chicken and egg. You don't always know which comes first. You know, and so I think the answer is we need more of that. We don't have enough, absolutely don't have enough beds for that. And that's one of the big challenges, because I think that's what a lot of people see, are that small percentage that are very significantly mentally ill that are on our streets. And if you haven't worked with someone, it can be really scary if someone comes up to you and starts yelling or is standing on a street corner. So that's where we need more help. There is MCAT, which is the mental health, I always forget the acronym. Anyway, it's like an immediate mental health crisis team. And they usually come out with the police. So if there is a mental health crisis, they will come out and assess. But we need more, definitely need more.
I want to say, I think that we're so lucky to have you.
Oh my gosh, thank you. That is so sweet of you. Feel so supported by the community, and am really honored to be working with so many amazing community members, social service agencies, and our houseless community. If I could share my text at night, it's so many nights. Every night I would say there's a handful of people that will say, thank you, good night, I love you. And it is so touching. And I've learned that when those 70 and 80-year-olds call me mom, that it's not that I look real old, but that I've taken a place in their life and tried to create maybe a family that they're missing, and that relationship. But thank you for saying that. That means a lot.
Oh, you're
So
welcome.
I'm going to call an end to this meeting, or try to wrap up this meeting now. We have a city meeting on Cooley Road right of way that starts at 7. And I just want to say thank you very much to Stacy. And if you send information to boydacres@gmail.com about your organization and how folks could support it, we will circulate it out at the best of our ability.
Thank you.
I think this was very enlightening. I didn't know about Hunnell Road having the mixed responsibilities between the city and county. We have a lot still to learn about what the situations are in order to effectively manage them, or help in managing them, instead of just judging. So I really appreciate you talking to us tonight, and thank you everyone who attended. And we'll see you on November 8th, I believe, if you want to join us for a talk from the library designers. And part of the talk with the library designers is the interaction of homeless, houseless people and the library, and how they interact with people who are not homeless, because the library is generally open to all and available for warming. So anyway,
Thank you.
yeah,
Thank
thanks
you
to everybody
all.
who's coming.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Have a nice evening.
Okay, I'm going to take us off of recording and let you in the meeting. If I can
Okay.
find out where I do that.
Good night.
Good night.
Thanks, Stacy.